Thank you very much. Indeed, it's 30 years that I left this university after having studied here. So it's very nice to come back and see this new house, which was completely different at the time. It was more baroque. I have the honor to introduce the special topic of urban climate adaptation strategies and affordability. And in the program, there is even a question afterwards, how can that work? I don't know. It's exactly what we are working on to find answers. And my question is more, why is this a question? Do we really have to assume that urban climate adaptation strategies are so expensive that they might not be affordable in the end? We are really trying to work on solutions that are affordable and to see quality development not as always costing more, but as using synergies in a way that they doesn't cost more. This is more the way we try to work on that. As it was said, I have studied here. I'm a landscaper from education. I have been working in the city planning in the City of Vienna for a long time. And at the moment, being head of International Building Exhibition, I will talk a little more about what this is and why we are here. But first, just draw your attention to the two panels we are focusing on, both on Thursday. The first one is in the morning, 9:30 to 11. It will be in German language. And we will have three presentations. It's about smart housing for generations, which focuses on densification as a chance for affordable and climate-adaptive housing. Then there is another one with Simon Janet about urban climatology and planning. And the third one is sustainable heating and cooling measures in urban neighborhoods. Then in the afternoon, we have in English language, first, the keynote, again by Simon Janet, about urban climate and new social housing. And then we have three presentations from how to make existing urban structures climate resilient, the use of BIM simulations for improving thermal comfort, and then energy issues in building and district assessment schemes. So, now I want to go a little bit into IBA and what is it. The International Building Exhibition, in fact, is a model that comes from Germany, has a long tradition there, and we adopted it in Vienna for the first time because usually this long-term period, it's 7 years in Vienna, it's sometimes 10 years in other cities and regions, gives us a chance to really focus on a topic and to work in a kind of a laboratory situation to really develop new ways, innovations, allow to make mistakes, allow to learn, and to really go further as a city and also as a society. Our initial situation in Vienna, when we look at the housing system, is quite good. I just put some pictures on here so you can see everybody knows about the time of Red Vienna. We had the Werkbund in the 1930s. So there were always big steps and big developments, and this is one of the reasons why Vienna is quite well known for housing. When we talk about the International Building Exhibition now, the A is a little joke because in English, of course, it's exhibition would be an E. It's German. And what we are focusing on, all the three letters. International means we are not only looking at Vienna, we are in the international context. We have to exchange and with other cities, and we invited even other cities. This has to do with the European Union, because on some levels in the European Union, there is the idea that subsidized housing would be against the law of competition, which is something that the cities know that it's not true, but the nations sometimes forget. So that's why we are working with cities and want to make clear that subsidized housing is a a big effort and a real contribution to balance social situations in cities and regions. It's called building exhibition because first we build and then we show the built results. So it's not just an exhibition where you can see models and sketches and renderings. It's really the built results that will be shown. Where are we now? You can see the whole time schedule. The blue mark shows that we are close at the end, and next year there will be the final presentation. And there are, in fact, 9 neighborhoods and 15 single projects all over Vienna that can be then visited next year. We really focus on neighborhoods, and I'm very happy that we heard a lot about this already. It's Runa Bergheim and also Peter Hurtado talked about the importance of neighborhood, of short distances. Gernot Stöckleiner in the morning when he presented the energy efficient spatial structures. And even the last talk we saw, we heard about the post-pandemic planning. It all comes together because when we really focus on lively neighborhoods and on good qualities in neighborhoods, it's all these qualities we can meet, and what I said in the morning, it's very good to see that in the times when I was studying here, we had very sectoral ways of looking at things from different angles and very different positions. Now when we look at solutions, suddenly it becomes clear that we are working on the same, and we can work together and really focus, for example, on good neighborhoods, which means short distances, which means good ground floor use, mixed use, density and green areas, because if you're dense, then you have more space for green areas, things like this. So really work together. And this is something I'm happy to see also in this COP conference. Something I also want to mention, because it's maybe a little different in Vienna, also in many areas in Germany and Scandinavia, that social does not mean it's only for the poorest of the poor or for the most vulnerable ones. It's more societal. When we talk about social housing in Vienna, then we have to understand that it's around 80% of the Viennese population who have access to social housing. That means it's not about poor, it's not about neediness or having to support. It's really about living together, coexist, and also have a social mixture, not only in a house, but also in a neighborhood and in districts. That's very important to understand. So I will give a short overview of some examples what we are working on. It's some of the neighborhoods, Wolfganggasse in the 12th district. It's not so big, it's about 1,100 housing units, most of them subsidized. And in this case, we try to focus on demand-oriented offers for single parents, which is, sounds like a very small sector in society, but in fact it's quite a big one. And when we started this project, soon after that, COVID broke out, and we could see that some of the needs that became visible through the pandemic were very similar to needs that are coming from working for single parents' needs, which means flexible floor space. How can you create a room that didn't exist before, but suddenly you need a room? How can you make that in an existing flat? How can you change your way of also living together? Sometimes you have to work, and as many of us have seen, you have children, they are at home. Maybe you have a partner who's also working and screaming into the phone or into the laptop at the same time. And this all in one of these 10 years ago very modern flats where you have one big living room and very small units to sleep, for example. doesn't work. So this really, we could see that in the competitions that we are having for developing new areas, that this was like a boost, and the solutions that are coming up are getting better and better every half a year, you could say, because not only the planners but also the developers are constantly learning and see that there is a lot of pressure there, and there is a lot of potential that we have to work on. And this is where I come back to what I said in the beginning. Synergies are the solutions. Taking a good idea from here and combining it with a good idea from there, and suddenly it's not more expensive, but it's much better in the end. This is what we're working on and trying to show in the end. Another example is Am Seebogen. Many of you will know Seestadt Aspern maybe. It's a huge development going on since 15 years, and we have finished the first phase, now in the second phase. Am Seebogen, what you see here is just a simple plan that shows all the different measures in the ground floor level, and this is coming back to the idea, why is neighborhood development so important? In the old EBAs in Germany, it was very important that every single project had to be outreaching, something very special. And I talked to an architect. He said, you have to develop the desire in Melbourne to jump into the airplane and go to Vienna because of this one project. And we said, well, that will not be possible in social housing because it's about affordability. You cannot really put a lot of money into a project that will never be copied again because it was too expensive. Maybe it was good, but we have to work on something that really is landing where for the people we are working for. And therefore, it's more the neighborhoods. Maybe you jump into the airplane or some other vehicle to go to Vienna and look at the neighborhood. This is what's really important and makes the difference for people who are living there. And this plan is just an example of how we try to work. So all the different developers are brought together at the table again and again and again, working together and trying to improve, even in the planning phase, what should be there in the ground floor, what is matching, what is really building a mixed-use offer, so that in case, for example, if there is COVID, people really can stay there. They don't have to jump into the underground. They don't have to go somewhere else. They can find what they need in walking distance, for example. So some of the topics that are more to fitting to the urban climate adaptation are a huge park, a new way of working with the space below the underground, because the underground is an upper ground. In fact, it's going above the ground, and you can use the space underneath for parts of the park. The sponge city, you know the sponge city system, of course, but for the first time in Vienna, it's really developed for a whole area for several hectares, and the City of Vienna is really using that as a test case and trying to find out how does it work, because we can see that the trees, even if they get are watered, they are dying in the heat and a lot of wind situations, so they need better conditions. We have a new mobility concept, so no more garages under the houses. Even in the first phase in Seestadt, there was only a garage under every third house, so that you more or less you've been forced to leave the house, maybe meet your neighbors, say hello every morning, because you couldn't just go down with the escalator, and then you walk by a shop and maybe you buy something. And so this was the whole concept of starting. But now, next step is just, if we build garages, then we build them as above the ground and with multiple use. So maybe the front is an office part, and in the back there is a garage. You don't even notice it's the garage, and you can change it after some years when there are less cars or different types of cars, you can change it. This is also a new way of developing that, and as always, and this is part of EBA, some courageous developers are doing the first step. Everybody else is like this, watching, and then say, okay, worked, okay, then we can do it again. So that's the whole procedure. Biotop City is something, a development in the 10th district that's quite well known now because it's just finished and everybody wants to see it. It's extremely dense and very green, and is an example of how developers can work together, because they were not forced, they were motivated, I could say, but it was really their decision to work together very intensely from the beginning. This university is part of it because they are doing research, not just in the planning phase, but also afterwards. And all the green measures have to be under supported by the people who live there, so that even the people get trained how to really work with these plants, how to really work with the green on the balconies, because then it will work. If they don't take their part, then it will not work. It's very interesting, but it's also good for people because they have a part, they have a role, and they really like it. The Greenpass Modulation was very helpful. It's a startup in Vienna. They developed a computer system where in the planning phase you can already measure and see which kind of green measures are really effective and which are just look nice. So for the developer, it's really a difference to find out, okay, if I have just a limited amount of money, where do I put it in so that it's really effective? The goal here is that we will have 2 degrees cooler. The air should be 2 degrees cooler than without these measures. And this is something the university then now will accompany with their research and see, did it really work and how can we still improve it? This is a picture of this Greenpass modulation. There is one, the left one is if you don't do anything, the right one is if you do everything, and what really has been done was almost everything, so that's why it's the first development that also got the Platinum Greenpass award in the end. And then this is interesting how this works in the city, because not even planners but also developers saw that it really made sense, the way they did it and what they developed. So in the next competition of developers on a completely different area, many of the ideas of Biotop City just went in there as a contribution in the competition phase. And for example, suddenly you had a park with huge trees and with wild development. I have been working in this area for a long time, and I've never seen that before, because it was always like, has to be very strict, and we just don't have enough money, and it's a small trees and they will grow. And suddenly it's really completely changed, and we can see that what many colleagues, landscaper colleagues, have been talking about for 10, 15 years, now suddenly landed and finally landed, and the whole city really makes a step in this direction. Then there are a lot of solitary projects, which means they're just standing somewhere alone, not as part of a neighborhood, but they show something very important, like top left is Waldrebengasse, it's about 100 units. For the first time also in subsidized housing, it's a timber wood construction combined with 100% renewable energy. That was not the case before in subsidized housing. We are trying it, have a lot of experience from Biotop City, for example, and from other developments going in there. And this is a nice cooperation with Vancouver at the same time, because Vancouver has been visiting Vienna for years because they wanted to install a system of subsidized housing in a city where that was always extremely highly ranked in living quality, but extremely expensive. So people who are needed in the city to run the city couldn't afford to live there anymore. And they had to find a way how to implement social housing, and they took the Vienna model as a role model and now are trying it to implement it. So we decided to build a Vancouver house in Vienna and a Vienna house in Vancouver. At the same time, this is what's now happening. Then you see a school underneath. It just opened yesterday, first day, I think. And in Seestadt Aspern, they are also using just a new system of heating that is independent from the district heating system. And for a school, it's also the first time in Vienna they really do it. And some other projects, I don't go through them, but they all show something where you can really go there, look at it, touch it, and say, okay, if this is possible, then we also can do it. Like one example, we had Gemischter Block. It's a development in the 10th district. Last year we did an interim presentation just to show what are we working on at the moment. And there was one developer who was almost done with the planning. It then he saw MGG22, which is top right. They have a very interesting energy system, and he said, okay, if they can do that, I can do that. And he changed his complete energy planning in the last moment and just showed that even a private investor can do that without losing too much money. Some other single projects that are working on climate adaptation in existing buildings. That's a big topic. We have so large areas, especially outside what we call Gürtel, the outer ring or the middle ring in Vienna. And they are Gründerzeit, so more than 100 years old, not very green, and a lot of parking situations. So it's almost impossible to improve the facade greening or something like this, and we are working together also with people who have studied here, coming from this university, to implement green situations, even when there is only a few, not enough space and not the normal conditions you would have for. And this is what we still see. This will be the next challenge, and this is also how Biotop City looked like in the building phase. So we really need to do the next step and work on building materials. How do we build? Because this is the biggest impact with CO2 emissions when we build like this. It's just an example. It's also in Aspern Seestadt, and it shouldn't be a shame picture. It's just what we are doing in the city at the moment, and we really need to do the next step. So this is just, if you are interested in IBER, this is our website on the bottom right. We have all the projects there, all our guided tours. That might be maybe the most interesting part. And next year there will be a few months where everything, all the results will be shown. A lot of guided tours, a lot of presentations going deeper, starting with June 22nd. And I think that's it. That saved you 10 minutes. Thank you.